You mentioned this Enverus AI.
hmm
What was it? You were on a panel yesterday?
Yeah. So, we obviously, everybody knows Enverus. That's in our business and drilling
Oh
info
yeah.
historically. And for years, the kind of title and courthouse side of Enverus has been used very often by laymen. I mean, especially in Texas, it's a product we use regularly to examine title. They've got their DI courthouse platform that's had several
Mhm.
iterations. And annually they have their conference. It's a user conference, right? Where they have touch on different topics. They have breakout sessions where they do a lot of educational stuff on, new features and new additions. And they asked me to come in and sit on a panel with Tim Custer and Jason Lyons from Apache and Anadarko, respectively, to talk about the evolution of an implementation of AI products and AI resources into title examination and document reading and file retrieval and file organization. Right? As a broker, I've got a very much different perspective of use of these tools than they would have as leaders of in-house E&P companies. Right? So it was a really
Yeah.
cool conversation. We kind of got to share perspective on how what we're seeing, how we're utilizing AI, how it's changed the title examination side of things over
Mhm.
the last, really frankly, the last year or 2 years is when it's really become prevalent. There was a bunch of early kind of adopters, but the technology hadn't caught up to the idea, right? Well,
Yeah.
now it's like the technology's setting what the ideas are now, right? We
Yes.
don't even know what the ideas are because we don't really know how effective it can be and how we can apply it. So a
Right.
lot of the conversation was, obviously talking about some of the tools that Enverus has recently rolled out with, retrieval of certain components of a given document and helping with title examination and helping with document analysis and things like that. But, really it talked about that some, but really it just evolved into like, how can we use these resources, within organizations or within a given process for title examination? And what's it going to take to really to perfect those processes and to have it really
Mhm.
make a difference, in what we're doing. Um, One of the things that we're all facing is that this technology is there with, and I say AI, it's large language models, it's OCI technology, it's AGI, like all these things are lumped in. Um,
Sure.
but it's like, what is it going to take? What's required of us as an industry to really get that integrated into what we do to really see the value out of it, wholesale. So
Yeah.
really interesting conversation. There's a lot going out there. I think everybody knows it's there. Nobody really knows what's the best way to implement it. We have a lot of ideas. Now we just have to execute on, implementing it into our daily workflow to try to make us better, faster, more efficient, more accurate. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of discussion yesterday about does it replace things? Does it replace people? And maybe it replaces certain things that certain people do. Um, but
Mhm.
we talked about skill set, and there's not a ton of experience and skill set out there. It's there, but it's like there's not a ton coming in. So it's just going to make us more valuable. Use of these tools is going to make us more efficient. We're going to make better, faster decisions. And hopefully, from like the title examination standpoint, we're going to be more accurate. It's going to allow us better quality control of the work that we do independently in the field, um, and hopefully allow us to get more out of the data that we capture. Dudley Land and other shops that use, holistically use databases. Um, the real power is going to come when you can take an AI and have it retrieve and combine information from like your broker's land system with your in-house system and your well files and your lease analysis and all those things. When it can marry all that seamlessly, that's when you're going to really see the power and when you can
Oh
prompt it
yeah.
accordingly. So
Man.
pretty cool
Yeah.
conversation. So,
Lots on that. I mean, we'll link to the conversation. It should be out. Maybe it's already out, but it should be out by the time this goes live. And we also had the podcast with Colin that we'll link to.
yeah. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so
It's
that'll be good
all
too.
it's out there. We'll see what it's gonna how it's gonna change the business. I think the last question they asked yesterday is like, how's this gonna change your business in the future? And of course she looked and Maddie looked at me first and I'm like, I don't know.
Like,
I know it's going to do
yeah,
something. I don't know. And that
yeah.
wasn't a
It's
very
changing every
enlightening.
business.
Yeah, it wasn't a very enlightening answer, but it's
Yeah,
we're all aware of it. I know it'll
that's
do
great. Were you in
something.
front of like a live audience too? Is this just like on the spot?
Yes, yes, it was a live audience. And of
You're like,
course,
thanks.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for looking at me first. I shouldn't have sat closest
Yeah.
to her because I had to answer
Uh,
everything first. Um,
that's great.
but no, I was appreciative of them including me. It was a pretty cool conversation.
So, on the topic of AI and software, we have a podcast with Brandon that just went live on Kudu. You just did a demo for Kudu. Why don't you explain what Kudu is really quick, and then talk about the conversation that you had with your client about it during the demo with data entry and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, to your point, we just going to be pushing out a podcast with Brandon. Um, Kudu is the second generation of our land system, right? Calms. If you've worked with Dudley over the years, you've heard us, say calms. You've seen it on your time and expense statements, that when you're approving our invoices. And calms was our land management system. I mean, everything that we do as a company runs through that system as part of our quality control. It allows us to be very sophisticated and organized with our reporting, allows us to operate efficiently, and allows us to really make the most of a one-time data entry concept, right? And so we've been reprogramming that system for about 4 years now. We've been using the land component of that system for going on 2 years. So we got a lot of good reps through the system, really refining and tweaking it. And it's a modern land system, web-based land system that'll be ultimately will be able to API into any other accounting systems that our clients use in house. And ultimately, we're going to license the product to, either companies that want a land system and need a land system. Um, Startup companies, it's a perfect type product for them. We're going to license it to the industry, to the land broker side of the business, as a tool that can do everything that they need to do. They'll be able to a two-man shop will be able to, if with our product, will be able to operate and run as efficiently as Dudley Land does. And so that's our vision for Kudu. But first and foremost, it's going to function and operate how we need it to function before we put it to the market. First and foremost, it's a product that's going to be central and core to our business. So that's why we went about building it ourselves, as opposed to using something off the shelf and trying to just make do. We weren't going to be happy with make do. It was going to be a step backwards for us. Um, so, with that, I get calls and people know what we do and that we're a data kind of systems driven company. And a client reached out to us, and it's actually not a client that we've ever worked for. I
Oh,
believe I've been trying for a long time. um,
you have the MSA in place, but just no
Boy,
work.
I had it in my back pocket, baby. But no, good company. They've been successful. They've run big rig programs. They've done a great job. Good folks that work over there. And so, reached out to me randomly, like, hey man, we're looking at maybe stepping out, doing some things, starting some new programs. And, you know, historically they admitted to me, hey, we went down a path like, we were felt like we were catching up with our data all the time, you know,
Yeah.
and we've learned some lessons from the way we did it the first time, and now this second time we want to just know if there's a better way to do it, you know. And they're doing their diligence. It was great. So they asked me, how do you guys manage your leasing projects? How do you manage your data? How does that integrate with the clients that you work with? That once you're done with your work, how does that feed into their systems? Um, and so they knew we had Kudu, they knew what we were doing. Like, hey, come show us what you do, how you guys operate. So it was really cool. I went in, I didn't have a motive per se, but really just to talk about how we use systems to organize and consistently, crank out and run through a process,
Mhm.
how we utilize it across the country in different land systems. What are some of the key important things to do, early in your effort that'll, provide results all the way through the workflow of, from buying, doing title, buying a lease, paying that lease, you know, getting a run sheet, getting a title opinion, doing the curative, ultimately drilling a well, and then putting that person in pay. Like, how can you make that process more efficient um, through use of databases and systems as opposed to spreadsheets that ultimately just end up in a system? right? So I was able to really show them just real world, examples of how we go about that and what's important and what's not, how it integrates with mapping, what are your manpower needs, you know, as you go through the process, if you've done certain things at the beginning, to really get your data in the system properly. So good, like real world, kind of talk of a company that went about a process and kind of had to live with that process because they couldn't slow down. And now they're thinking about how can we do it better and what's out there and how do other people do it. And so I was able to share that. So it's pretty cool.